Hello, my name is Dinah Libberton, and this is my final presentation for my Intercultural Communication course. I would like to begin by asking you to imagine a red shirt. I have an image in my mind of a red shirt. My shirt looks like this. Is this what your red shirt looks like? If you tell a group of people to wear red shirts to an event, you're likely to get shirts that are darker, or just simply different in color. You're also likely to get shirts that have plaid or print, or this red flannel shirt fits the description of a red shirt, as does this red button-down shirt. Even this variety of women's red shirts all might be possibilities of something that someone might wear if asked to wear a red shirt. I asked my husband to show me an image of a red shirt, and this is what he responded with. I know some people who might be more inclined to conjure this image when asked for a red shirt. Other famous examples of red shirts may even come to your mind. What we see here is more complex than a red shirt, and often complexity is forgotten. This is also true in communication regarding cultural differences. To aid in understanding intercultural communications, I will discuss during this presentation working with individuals from diverse cultures, avoiding unhealthy stereotypes in the workplace, and effective workplace communication. Cultures are diverse for many reasons, not only because of the environment in which they are set, but also the history of the region, natural resources, ability to trade, as well as influence from family and religion. Every culture develops in response to the world around it, and by maintaining lessons throughout generations. People from different cultures may have a different idea of acceptable family structures. Explanations also vary from one culture to another. The reason and motivation for both life and death change based on culture. Many religious cultures believe that death allows one to proceed into either heaven or hell. Other cultures may think that nothingness, or even something else, occurs. Ethics, ideas, and standards of what is right and wrong also vary from culture to culture. Where most Americans look down upon arranged marriages, finding it unethical to determine another person's future, other cultures, such as some Hindu cultures and even some Amish cultures here in the United States, still practice arranged marriages. So what is considered right and wrong vary from culture to culture. Gender roles also vary by culture. Within the U.S., there are several different cultural ideas of women. Women and men are often grouped into categories based on appearance. Women have long hair, wear makeup, dress pretty. Men have beards and short hair and wear jeans. Masculine and feminine behaviors are being blurred by the younger generations, but many elderly population still typically expect men and women to have more traditional gender roles. Language is also heavily dependent on culture. Communication is shaped by culture. Salmavar and et al. Note that in cultures that depend heavily upon rice, as in China, there are multiple words that mean rice in different aspects, but only one word for beef. In the United States, we have so many words to describe beef, but only one word for rice. This is just one example of how culture shapes language. Another example is how we introduced this presentation with the idea of a red shirt. Your personal culture influenced what you thought of when you thought of a red shirt. Superior Senior Care is an organization that interacts with many cultures. We are based in the United States, so many stakeholders hold the same general values and beliefs, but we're not limited to those ideas. Americans in general want to have control, be equal, and do things themselves. Or at least that was the idea when Robert Cole wrote his Ideas of American Values back in 1974. While things have changed, many Americans still hold true to these ideas. Superior Senior Care is also based within the state of Arkansas. Arkansas was the first French settlement in the area, and that was back in 1686, before becoming part of the United States. Arkansas officially became a state in 1836. Our humble state is known for lakes, streams, highlands in the northeast, and lowlands in the south. Arkansas is even home to mountain ranges. It was in the 1990s when Arkansas residents in urban areas outnumbered those in rural communities. With resources from petroleum to natural gas to the only public diamond mine in the world, Arkansas is a perfect home for many individuals. I checked with friends, family, co-workers, and the internet to find what Arkansans are known for, and found several common elements. First is the Razorbacks. I know how to call those hogs. Ooh, pig suey. Of course, float trips are common in Arkansas, and you cannot forget about the love for fried food. From meats, vegetables, and even dessert, Arkansans have made an impression with fried food. Outdoor sports like hunting and fishing are also common, along with the use of camouflage for events other than hunting, like dances and weddings. Tractors can be found driving on many Arkansas roadways, and iced tea is a common staple in many homes. I know that I can relate to many of these images as an Arkansan, but they do not all describe me. With having a population of almost 3 million people, Arkansas is home to all kinds of individuals with various personal backgrounds and personal cultures. While most of the residents are white, over a quarter of Arkansans identify as some other ethnicity. The United States Census Bureau identifies nearly 5% of Arkansans as being born in another country, and 3.3% of residents under the age of 65 have a disability. 19% of Arkansas residents live in poverty, yet the average annual wage is around $40,000. Arkansas is full of people from different cultures, and that can be seen here at SSC as well. As an organization focused on coordinating care between seniors and caregivers, SSC encounters a variety of cultural differences. With a staff of less than 50, most employee interactions are either with the clients, caregivers, or nurses. Arkansas offers an Our Choices program that pays for care for many individuals with disabilities and seniors in need of assistance. Because of the rural nature of Arkansas, many seniors qualify for this program despite the financial guidelines and restrictions. 80% of people over the age of 65 suffer from at least one chronic condition. While two people may have the same condition, the particulars will be unique to the individual. With 16% of Arkansans being over the age of 65, and that number expected to double by 2030, many Arkansans are in need of care regardless of payment method. Studies show that seniors living in rural communities or that identify as part of the LGBT community often have more health complications and less access to care and assistance. Both of these communities lack any type of specialized attention from the government, making their complex situations difficult. The diversity of seniors is going to increase in the next decade. As the baby boomer generation ages, the more worldly generation will be in need of care. Caregivers are also diverse. From 2010 to 2012, Arkansas offered grants to individuals looking to become caregivers in anticipation to this growing elderly population. This grant program allowed individuals to become caregivers that would have otherwise not had the opportunity. The personal care occupation ranks fourth in expected growth in the U.S. Of all the increases in healthcare occupations, a third of that will be in the PC industry. Interacting with caregivers and nurses means interacting with people with various educational histories. While certification or licensure is required, the types vary. Education and experience can be very dramatically different from one aide to another, or even from one nurse to another. The current PC labor force consists of various individuals, but the typical caregiver is a middle-aged white female. This could change by the year 2022, when the field is expected to increase by 48%. Differences between individuals come from a deeply rooted structure learned from family, media, and globalization. Even within people who we think would be the same, differences can be found in elements such as privacy. Some people are comfortable sharing certain personal aspects, while others are not. Materialism. What one person considers frivolous, another may consider necessary. The value of material possessions vary from culture to culture and person to person. Competitiveness. Most Americans value and appreciate competitiveness. Many leaders believe that little competition can bring out the best among a team. But not all people feel this way. In our industry, competitiveness is often an element that causes issues or conflict. Understanding that acceptable competitiveness varies by culture is an important element of communication. Body image. Many poorer cultures find plump body figures to be desirable due to a general lack of food. Overweight is associated with wealth. Americans value thinness that would be considered an unhealthy in these plumper cultures. For example, in Mexico. Again, ideas of body image can vary from culture to culture. Assertiveness, trash talk, blunt statements, and direct demands are common among Americans because Americans are typically aggressive communicators. Filipino and Chinese are often made uncomfortable by American interactions because of the aggressive nature of Americans, while Americans find the overall lack of aggressiveness in these other cultures as weak or timid. While assertiveness is not acceptable in all settings, not even in the United States, it can make people feel afraid or uncertain if done when unwanted. Gender roles are another element of difference. In most cultures, women take up on the role of relationship building, education, and general care elements, while men are responsible for labor, physical, and dangerous tasks. The ideas of what a man or woman is vary so greatly that America is now debating how to handle these new roles. Gender in America has become more complex, and how each person assigns gender roles is often unpredictable, but heavily influenced by personal culture. Formality is another element of difference. While most people in America do not adopt the same ideas about formality that Japan, Egypt, or even Turkey does, there are many situations that are formal and employ the use of titles and ranks. Some Americans do expect elements of formality. Some clients want to be called sir, ma'am, Mr., or Mrs., but others interact on a first-name basis. It is important to notice these cultural differences while interacting with both caregivers and clients, because it can allow for an opportunity to set both parties up for success. Many age differences can also be seen at SSC. There are four major age brackets encountered, and they are traditionalists, baby boomers, Generation Xers, and millennials. Traditionalists were born between 1900 and 1945. This generation is often considered to be one of the greatest generations. They are good soldiers, responsible, patriotic, and often religious. The baby boomers, born between 1946 and 1964, were the original workaholics. They're idealists, known for their extreme work ethic, and they were the business people of the 80s, the people who got things done. Generation X are those born from 1965 to 1980. These individuals faced many economic changes throughout their lifetimes. They're thought of as resourceful and independent. And millennials are born between 1981 and 2000. These are the product of years of child psychology and research. These individuals often overvalue authority, especially their authority, are stimulus junkies, and enjoy taking a risk. It is important when identifying who is who and what is what to avoid unhealthy stereotypes. Even in this picture of faceless individuals, we begin making assumptions about who they are as people. There are two elements that create unhealthy stereotypes, the first of which is projected cognitive similarity. That you think like I think, or since I think it's wrong, you must also think it's wrong, and other assumptions of cognitive processes similarities. The second is the outgroup homogeny effect, thinking that I am unique, but others are similar, or I am so much more than an assistant, but the other assistants are all the same, or other failings to see the uniqueness of others. We forget to consider the complexity of others and judge them based on our expectations, which results in the unhealthy stereotypes. Some ways to avoid stereotypes include avoiding ethnocentrism, thinking that your way of thinking is the best way, which can lead to assumptions, cause us to misjudge situations or other people's intentions, and distort our communications. You should try to understand the desired perception of others, including their values, goals, and needs, to help ensure effective communication. And be aware of the communication techniques, both verbal and nonverbal, in use by yourself and others. What is verbal communication? Verbal communication can be used to maintain and modify groups through the use of formality, humor, and even context, to set the tone and define expectations. Vocabulary can affect verbal communication by excluding or confusing others unfamiliar with chosen words. Tools used in verbal communication include personal meetings, the telephone, and even the internet. When using verbal communication, you must be aware of your confidence level. In many cultures, it is acceptable for men to be confident during verbal communications, but confident women may seem boastful. While it's important to ask questions, asking them may make you seem incompetent. One must be careful with apologies as well. While they must occasionally be given, they can mean two different things. Sorry can either mean, I'm sorry that this happened, or I'm sorry for my part in what happened. And it's important to specify what you are saying sorry for, and not just say, I'm sorry. Other things to consider when verbal communication includes, but are not limited to, giving compliments and your level of directness. Verbal communication is based on perception, and that perception depends heavily on our culture and gender. Nonverbal communication depends on many things. Four major aspects of which are gestures, touch, personal space, and eye contact. One common example of gesture is the ring, formed by the thumb and the forefinger. In the U.S., it means okay. But in other cultures, it may mean money or even be vulgar. And while we assume that gestures will always be recognized, within cultural studies, it's shown that understanding of a gesture varies even within the same culture. For example, when a model gives a gesture, 96% of people understand it. But when a second model gives the same gesture, it's only understood 54% of the time. The way people move, the mannerisms, and their personal being changes the meaning and interpretation of the nonverbal messages being sent. In America, we use handshakes and pats as a method of touch, but in Latin America and Middle Eastern cultures, touch is often more than that. It is not common to see men walking and holding hands simply out of friendship. The Japanese touch less than most Americans, but typically the way to remember is that the more conservative a culture is, the less touching that is acceptable. Personal space also varies by culture. Factors that affect it are rank, gender, space, and intimacy. People of rank are generally not to be touched, and those of the opposite sex usually are not touched. People from densely populated areas usually have less personal space than people from sparsely populated areas. And eye contact, while fairly neutral in North America, is avoided in Latino and Muslim communities, especially between genders. The complexity of nonverbal communication can be dependent on so many factors. Both verbal and nonverbal communication follows the same process. The source is the first part of this process. In this situation, it's a client who has something to communicate. The client thinks that something should be done that is not being done. First, the client must encode their thoughts. He or she must formulate a message in which to send, "I need this done." But how will the message be delivered? In this example, the two people are communicating in person, hands-on, and eye-to-eye. There is physical touch and eye contact. The process then turns to the receiver. In this example, you and I would be the receivers. We must decode the message to try to make meaning from it. If language and culture are the same, then the meaning should be able to be received without much of an issue. Once the message is decoded, the receiver can give feedback. This is an opportunity to clear any elements of confusion, relay any elements of concern, or work towards a resolution to the issue. Any part of this process can be subject to noise. Noise is anything that distorts the process and creates difficulty in understanding. So how would one improve communication? Unfortunately, there's not one simple answer to this question. Communication is situationally dependent. It requires an awareness to the various processes of communication, the power that language holds, and the cultures of those involved in communication. One helpful tool is to check comprehension and understanding with repetition. Ask the other person to repeat what you've said to ensure that they understood and heard the meaning of what you are saying. Avoid the use of negative questions. In the United States, it's the only culture who answers yes to a negative question. When I ask you, "You don't mind if I take this pen, do you?" Most Americans would answer with, "Yeah, like, go ahead, that's fine, I don't mind." But other cultures would answer, "No, I don't mind if you take it." Other elements that could help communication is to avoid slang. People who are not in your social group may not understand the same slang that you do. Be intentional when you speak. Do not just ramble, but know what you want to say and say it with purpose. Monitor your volume and adjust for the situation. Coordinate verbal and nonverbal cues. Mimic your words with your physical actions to aid in understanding. Be concise. Use only the words needed for comprehension. If I want you to stand up, I would ask you to stand up. I would not say that standing up may be difficult if you're tired, but I still really like for you to stand up. Again, reflect on the situation when determining how concise your language should be. Finally, be sure to give time for a response. Different people respond in different time. Some need to formulate an answer, some need to think about what was said, and others give plenty of time to do both, comprehend and respond. When you begin to speak again without allowing for a response, it eliminates the opportunity for the involvement of others. I have covered several elements of workplace communication in this presentation. I hope that it has left you with an appreciation of the complex differences that can be had between cultures and individuals. While we do categorize people to simplify understanding, it is important to not limit your understanding to these labels. Understanding both verbal and nonverbal communication can help you with both the sending and receiving of messages. And while no one strategy can improve communication, awareness is the first step to improving. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at dinalibberton@gmail.com. Thank you.